Today we're making the easiest, most delicious cake pops you will ever have. The cake recipe that I am using for this is a vegan gluten-free cake recipe that I have in another video if you want to check it out. It is hands down the best gluten-free vegan cake recipe you will find. It's so good. So that's the recipe that I'm using, but you can use whatever recipe you prefer. And what you want to do is you want to bake that cake a bit earlier than when you're actually going to make the cake pops. Stick it in the fridge when you're done because you want the cake to be nice and cool. You don't want it to be warm because when you're dipping it in the chocolate afterwards, you don't want the chocolate to be runny and just fall right off. You want the chocolate to cool down pretty fast and adhere to your cake pop. So what you're going to need for this recipe, obviously your cake mix, and what you want to do with this cake is once it's cooled down, throw it in a bowl and you want to mash it up a bit. You want the texture to be really soft and broken up, not clumpy though, so there's not big chunks in it, and it would be kind of gross if you're biting into a cake pop and you're getting chunks of cake. You want it to be like this, nice and fine. So mash that up with your hand or a spoon, because then you want to be able to mold it into your cake pop, into the shape and the size that you want for your cake pop. So you've got your cake. You're going to need a board for your cake pops, or you can even use a styrofoam. There's something to hold your cake pop in, something to be able to stick the cake pop stick in. What I'm using is just an old cutting board that I got my husband to drill some holes in the size of the sticks that I'm going to use. I have two different kinds with two different sizes because I either like to use the regular paper sticks, which are small. Sometimes I like to use the reusable bamboo sticks, which are a lot thicker. These are nice just because you can, wash them and reuse them as many times as you want, and it saves you a ton of money. You're also going to need a small bowl of sprinkles, whatever kind of sprinkles you want to use, because this is what you're going to put on top of your cake pop. And while you're getting this prepared and starting to make your cake pops and mash your cake up, you want to have some chocolate on the stove melting. I'm using just a large dark chocolate bar, and I have it on the lowest setting so that it's slowly melting and it's going to stay nice and warm. But you don't want to have to stand at the stove and constantly stir, because if you have it on any higher, you could possibly burn it and it'll just start sticking to the bottom. I have it in a glass measuring cup, but you can really melt it in anything. Just make sure that it's not, well, depending on how much chocolate you're using, it's not a huge pot or something large, because you want it to be narrow enough that the chocolate's deep enough so you can dip the entire cake pop in it. You don't want the bottom to just be naked. Okay, I'm going to move the camera and give you guys a different angle on this. Okay, so in my cake mix, what I actually added, because when you make the cake mix, it might be a little bit dry and it might fall apart, and you don't want that to happen. So what you might want to add inside is a little bit of icing, or you can add some coconut oil or a little bit of olive oil. So I added just a tiny bit of olive oil and a bit of coconut oil as well to make sure that it's going to bind really well, because you don't want it falling apart. Now you're going to have to squish it together fairly well until it gets the exact shape that you want. Mine's crumbling all over the place, but that's okay. And then grab your stick, hold it tight while you put the stick on, just so that it's not going to fall apart, and stick it in about halfway, maybe until it reaches the other end, and make sure you form the ball around the stick, just like that, just like that. Now you want to dip it into the chocolate fairly quickly so it's not going to fall off, because the chocolate, once you dip it in, is what's going to really hold it together and make its shape. And once it's dipped in, you know for sure it's not going to fall apart. Okay, so I have my chocolate here. I just took off the stove. It's nice and warm. And I'm just going to show you guys quickly how you want to do this. Make sure that the cake pop is formed nicely around the stick. And you want to dip the chocolate in all the way past, the entire cake pop. And you want it to cover the stick a little bit. Just like that. Because then it's going to form nicely and hold its shape nicely. And then just stick it in where you want it, Oh, okay, I can eat it. Okay, that one I just made an absolute mess of. There's chocolate dripping everywhere, but that's okay. While it's still a little bit warm, you want to add your sprinkles. If you find it's holding well enough, you can literally just dip it in the sprinkles, but I find it easier just to throw them on top. Look how cute that is. That's so cute. Can you guys see that? I don't know. Can you see that? Let's do another one. Okay, so I'm going to do another one. They're so cute. So messy. And you know what? They don't have to be perfect. So, you know, even if they're not perfect, you're going to eat them anyway. Alright, Cakepop number 2. All the way in indefinitely until it touches the stick. If you have excess, let it drip. Oh my gosh, I can't. No! What happened to my Cakepop?
If you have excess, let it drip. Oh my gosh, no!
So my Cakepops ended tragically, but here is how they turn out when you do things properly. My biggest tip, I would say, is do not keep your cake in the fridge overnight. Use a fresh cake that's been cooled down before you do your Cakepops. I left mine in the fridge overnight, and I think it just became a little bit too dry and way too crumbly. I don't know what the heck happened. But this is what they look like when they turn out properly. They're beautiful. They're perfect. I spent the rest of my time after that video cleaning up and getting ready for my kids' party. And instead of making those Cakepops, I just made little cake balls and literally just put them on a platter and covered them in chocolate. And they were still pretty darn delicious. But here are some lovely photos for you guys if you want to do things right. Thanks for watching.